All right, so this is 5-1 exponents, kind of like part 2. Okay, so the first part were all the rules of exponents, like when you multiply two powers together, you add the exponents. If you raise a power to a power, you multiply the exponents. If you divide two powers, you subtract the exponents. If you have a quotient to a power, you distribute that inside. So those were all the rules yesterday. Okay, and these are just like two kind of, I guess, quotient problems. So what you want to do with these, and especially on WebAssign, is you kind of want to figure out what it's asking for. So on WebAssign, when I was noticing, because I'm going to be putting that up today, is sometimes, like with a question like number 2, when you distribute that 3 in, they're going to want you to say what that number is, not like -4 to the 3rd. Okay, so they're going to want you to evaluate. So there's going to be keywords like evaluate, which means it wants like the actual number. So if it's like a number to a power, it wants you to type that in your calculator and compute that. If it just says simplify, chances are you can leave that as a number. So up here, the way I like to look at these problems is I have a fraction. So I actually start out by putting a fraction bar. All right, it's going to seem kind of weird, but Chris, just trust me here, okay? 27 divided by 9 is 3. And it's going to be on top, okay? Because 27 divided by 9 is 3. So it's going to be on my numerator. Now, the reason why I have a fraction bar is I have m's and n's. Sometimes I might have more n's or m's on bottom. In this case, I don't. Okay, but I want to set you up for success later on. So when I'm doing these problems, I put that fraction bar in, whether I know I'm going to have a denominator or not. So what I do here is I'm going to do m to the 5th over m. This m has an exponent of 1. So I do 5 minus 1, that's 4. M to the 4th, it's positive. It's on top. I have more m's on top. That's why my m is on top. Now, n to the 6th over n to the 3rd, I'm going to subtract them. 6 minus 3 is 3, so it's n to the 3rd. Now, I have 3 n to the 4th, n to the 3rd, and it just looks like I underlined my problem, so it's not a real big deal. Carolina, you seem kind of confused. That's going to be later on today. So notice when we subtracted that, I didn't get a negative number, did I? So that's why they were all up top. If it was negative, we subtracted it, they would be down bottom. And that's why I'm starting to like prepare you that we might have negative exponents. And if we do, well, that's going to be in the bottom. So I better be prepared to write it in the bottom. Okay? So up here with number 2, first thing I'm going to do is I need to get rid of the 3 on the outside. So I'm going to distribute that inside. And I'm going to type in my calculator, -4 in parentheses. It's going to matter a whole lot whether you put in parentheses or not. Now, for this problem, if I type in -4 to the 3rd, no parentheses, I'm going to get the same answer as if I put in -4 in parentheses to the 3rd. But if that 3 was a 4, well, now it's going to play a big difference. Okay? If I do -4 to the 4th, no parentheses, I'm going to get a negative number. But if I put -4 in parentheses to the 4th, I'm going to get a positive number. Because what your calculator does is it does order of operations. So it's doing 4 to the 3rd or 4 to the 4th first, and then it's making it negative. So anytime you have something in parentheses, like this -4, keep it in parentheses. So when you enter this in the calculator, you want to enter it just like that. Now, x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd. And I'm not going to do anything with the denominator. Now, -4 to the 3rd, that's going to be -64. Okay? I'm going to kind of put my fraction bar here and take this problem down in 2 more steps. So after I evaluate that -4 to the 3rd, I get this. And now I'm going to simplify my answer. I'm going to put that fraction bar there, just in case, Carolina, I have negative exponents here. Negative 64 divided by 8, that's negative 8. X to the third divided by x to the first. Remember, there is a 1 right there. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Y to the third over y squared, that's going to be y to the first. So I don't have anything on bottom, so I can kind of box in my answer using the fraction bar or erase it, doesn't really matter. Okay? So that was yesterday with all of those properties. Now today, we have 0 and negative exponents. Now, the rule for a 0 exponent, I showed you this yesterday. Anything to the 0th power is what, Lance? Do you remember? It is 1. So what this is saying is, all right, 3 to the 0 is 1. Anything to the 0th power is 1, okay? In terms of a variable, this would be like x to the 0. It's 1, okay? Any questions with that? I don't want to write it out in words. I just want to give you examples, all right? Now, a negative exponent. Now, Kailana, this is what you were saying, okay? If we have a negative exponent, where does it go? On the bottom. So if I have 2 to the negative third, this is just saying 1 over 2 to the third. Okay, so those are equivalent. If we have y to the negative second, that's just saying 1 over y squared. So whenever you have a negative exponent, it goes in the denominator. Or this is the way I think of it. I don't like to think of it as going in the denominator or not. I like to sing a song by The Clash. You may know it. Should I Stay or Should I Go? Have you ever heard of this song? All right, so when I do these problems, I sing, should I stay or should I go now? Whenever you have a negative exponent, okay, it means it's in the wrong place. It needs to go. So if you have a negative exponent in the denominator, well, it goes to the numerator. If you have a negative exponent in the numerator, it goes to the denominator. So exponents that stay, well, they're the positive ones. They're okay to be where it's at, okay? So whenever you're doing these problems, just sing the Clash song to yourself. Should I stay or should I go now? And we'll help you, okay? A negative power, okay? A negative power, it's the same thing, okay? So negative exponent rule, we went over that, and negative power, I'm not really sure what they're talking about there. Doesn't really matter. I wouldn't worry about it, okay? Because everything else is kind of the same. So with A, here we go, Kailana, ready? See how we have that negative exponent? I'm viewing each and every one of these problems as kind of like a fraction, okay? Even though this one's not written as a fraction, I'm thinking about it as a fraction. And I'm going to say, should I stay or should I go? Well, notice it has a negative exponent, right? So if this is a fraction, that 2 to the negative fourth is in the numerator. So it can't be there. So it needs to go to the denominator. Okay? And it's just 1 over 2 to the fourth. Julie, are you okay with that? I'm going to skip B for now. I'm going to go to C. Lance, what is C? 1. Anything to the 0th power is 1. Now, let's look at D. Okay? I have the negative out front, doesn't really make a difference, but I have this fraction. And in the denominator of that fraction, I have 8 to the negative second, right? Well, should I stay or should I go? Well, I need to go because it's a negative exponent. It's not where it belongs. So notice it's down bottom. So I put it up top. And that's that. So really, I'm telling you, that song really will help you out. If it has a negative exponent, it needs to go. So you should be asking yourself every time, should I stay or should I go? Now, I skipped B because B is kind of a little weird, right? We have that fraction, okay? And I'm sure some of you will pick up on a shortcut. All right, but because I'm not big on shortcuts, Lance. I think you know that. It's just like I like knowing one way to do it, and it just kind of works that way. I don't like shortcuts that work for certain things. We know from yesterday, whenever we have a power outside, we distribute it, right? So that goes to 4 to the negative third, and that becomes 5 to the negative third. Now I sing my song. Should I stay or should I go now? Well, 4 to the negative third, it's a negative exponent. It needs to go. So it's up top, so it goes down bottom. 5 to the negative third, well, that's a negative exponent. It needs to go. So the only place for it to go is up top. So it's 5 to the third over 4 to the third. You guys okay with that? What was that? Evaluate? Okay, so great question. Carolina asks, would I evaluate? It really depends on the directions, okay? If the directions say evaluate, I have to then change each of these. So if I'm evaluating, this would become 1 over, what is that, 16. Okay? If I'm evaluating this, it would be 125 over 64. That's already evaluated. This would become negative 64. That's me evaluating. If the directions say simplify, well, all that blue work is perfectly fine. Kaylin, you okay with that? All right, you guys got 4 problems right there. Try them, they're very similar. Chris, you okay? I see you're running a Yeti sweatshirt. It's been very expensive. $300. Come insulated. Blows my mind how much those things are. They're like, yeah, let me get this cooler. They're like, $500. You're like, for what? All right. Jay. Jay.
Yeah.
Jay, what's the first one? Number 1. 5 to the negative second becomes?
1 over 5 to the second.
1 over 5 squared. Cody.
Yeah.
Negative 3 to the 0 is?
1.
Did you not hear me?
Wasn't Cody.
Harmon,
Yeah.
did you not hear me?
No, somebody else chimed in.
Oh,
It's
what?
okay.
I already said.
Yeah, Cody, I got you. I got you.
Yeah, see, it was Hansi. Nikki Grantland.
I have no clue.
Well, look at this, Nikki Grantland. See that negative 3 in the exponent there?
Uh-huh.
See how it's in the denominator?
Mm-hmm.
It goes to the numerator. So it's 4 cubed over 1.
Okay. Got it.
All right, number 4. Number 4, let's go with Justin.
I didn't get to that one.
Okay, I'll give you a second. All right, Justin, what'd you got?
I got 3 to the first over 2 to the first.
Very good. So I'm just going to write it as 3 over 2 because anything to the first is just that thing. All right. Now, example 4 says, rewrite each expression using only positive exponents. So in this one, I don't have to evaluate. I can. Okay. I'm going to do my best to kind of write both. All right. So if I'm rewriting only using positive exponents, means I can't have those negative exponents. Typically in math, we don't write things in a final answer with a negative exponent. It's just not kosher. It's not right. Okay? Like, it's not necessarily wrong, but we just don't like it. So right here, I'm looking at this problem. Again, I'm viewing all these problems as fractions. So I'm kind of thinking as a 3y to the negative third over 1. So here, I have two parts. I have the 3, and I have the y to the negative third. So the 3, the power of the 3 is positive. So that stays. Y to the negative third, well, that's negative, right? So that means that negative means it goes to the bottom. It becomes positive. So this becomes 3 over y cubed. With a question like B, it's a little different because now this negative 3 needs to be distributed inside. So that's 4 to the negative third, x to the negative third. And remember, I'm kind of thinking about these all as fractions. So 4 to the third, well, it's a negative 3, so that means it can't stay there, so it goes down bottom. X to the negative third, well, that's negative. It's up top, so it goes down bottom. So now I have something like this, and what I do is I put a 1 here to hold the place because it's on bottom. So it's going to be 1 over 4 cubed x to the third. So far, so good. Not too bad. C, well, the 3 has a positive exponent, so that can stay up top. Then x to the negative 2, well, that's a negative exponent. That can't stay there, so it's down bottom, so it goes up top. And then there's nothing left here, and I don't have to put anything there, whereas I did with B because it's understood to be a 1. And 1 divided, or anything divided by 1 is just that thing. Now let's really focus on D, E, and F. All right. There's a lot going on with these problems. My advice is simplify everything out. Okay, make it into one part before doing anything. Okay, don't worry about the negative exponents or not. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. 5 times negative 6, that's negative 30. We okay with that so far? Kaylin, are you okay with that? Now, the S's. I know this is a negative 2. I'm not worried about it because this says I'm multiplying the two things. And Julie, what do I do when I multiply two powers? What do I do with the exponents? I add them. What's 5 plus negative 2? Lance? Now, this problem, not done yet. The negative 30 has a positive exponent. The S has a positive exponent, but the T has a negative 1. So it can't be there, Lance. So it goes down bottom. And now we're done. Caroline. Here? Probably not. You don't have to. I don't know if it would mark it wrong. I don't think it would. I think it would be like a variation. But like if you're planning on going further in math, you wouldn't write it. I'm just writing it there because I want you guys to see like the flow of it. Okay? So you could probably write it either way. And if you got it wrong on WebAssign, that would be something you would just tell me, and I would probably give you the point back. All right, with E, here's what we do with E. I'm going to view it as numbers and variables. First numbers I'm going to deal with are the 2 and the 4. Mike, what's 2 over 4? What can that be simplified to? So 2 out of 4 is what? Two out of 4. That's 4 out of 2, right? So you're doing 4 divided by 2, right? So let's just say you have a 4-question quiz, right? And you got 2 questions right. What percent did you get? What's that? 50%. So 50% is 1/2. So 2 out of 4, we're going to simplify to 1/2. So we're going to do 1 over 2. That's going to take care of the numbers. Now I have the variables. All right, Lana, let's deal with the lots, right? Understood to be a 1 there, right? So we know when we're dividing, we subtract, right? Multiplying, we added. Dividing, we subtract. What's -1 minus 1? -2. Okay? So I'm going to put that right there. And Jake Stevens.
Yes.
Jake, what is -3 minus -3?
That would be 0. Wait, no, that would be -6.
No, you were right. You were right. You said 0. That was right. Now,
Yeah.
we have this, and this simplifies to, okay? The 1 is positive or has a positive power. The 2 has a positive power, so they stop. Why to the -2nd? That can't stay where it's at, so it goes down bottom. Now the Z, Lance, anything to the 0th power is, so I don't really need it, do I? So it kind of goes away. You okay with that? All right. Okay, 2 ways to do this problem. I'll encourage you to do it one way over the other. You don't have to. You can do it, I guess, a long way, whatever you want. My advice is this. Deal with everything in the parentheses first, and then deal with the -1 outside. The reason for that is if I distribute that -1 inside, I'm going to have to start like flipping things and moving things around. But everything inside, I can kind of deal with right now. I can simplify it. So you want to simplify, just like a fraction, anything in the parentheses first. So let's go ahead and deal with 5 squared. What is 5 squared? Mike, what's 5 times 5? 25. So I'm going to write that as 25. Can't really do anything with x to the 3rd. Can't really do anything with that negative, or y to the -3rd. 125 x, y. All right. So the first thing I did was I evaluated that 25. And I did that so I can deal with the 125. Ed.
Yo.
Ed, can you type in your calculator 25 divided by 125? And can you make that a fraction?
25 yeah. 1 over 5.
1 over 5. So I'm going to divide those out and I get 1/5. Now, x to the 3rd over x to the 1st. We subtract those. So 3 minus 1 is?
I am.
3 minus 1? 2. So the x is x to the third over x to the first is x squared. Hansi. Hansi?
Yeah.
Hansi. Y to the negative third over y to the first. We subtract those. So
Yeah.
it's negative 3 minus 1.
What?
What's negative 3 minus 1?
-2.
Close. Go the other direction.
2. 1.
4.
4.
Wow. That's gonna really boost my YouTube ratings. If Hansi,
Good.
don't listen to Nikki Grantland here. Don't listen to him.
Is it
Right.
not 4?
No.
Okay.
Hansi,
What am I supposed to do? I wasn't
if you borrow $3 from me and then you borrow another $1, how much did you borrow from me?
I borrowed $4 from
And
you.
borrowing's not good, so that's -4. So it's -4. Now that the inside is simplified, right? Do you guys see how much easier that is to like kind of deal with? Now let's deal with this guy outside. So this -1 is going to go to everything. But remember, when we distribute that -1 inside a power to a power, we multiply. So when I do that, I have, it's a really big one. We have 1 to the negative first, x to the negative second, y to the fourth, and then 5 to the -1. So I distributed that negative to each one of those things and multiplied. And now this gives me that 1 can't stay where it's at, so it goes down bottom. That x can't stay where it's at, so it goes down bottom. That y is fine because it's got a positive exponent. And now on bottom, that 5 to the negative first, well, that can't stay there, so it goes there. So you have something that looks like this, which I would probably clean up and write as 5y to the fourth over x squared. Lance, is that what you got? There you go. All right, and